Anamorphic lenses are industry standards in cinema world. Making movies, they use a lot of anamorphic lenses. But how about using an anamorphic lens on a street photography photo walk? Let's find out. Hi, it's Peter here, and let's get into the business right after the disclaimer. The lens I'm using in this video is not mine. The Sirui 20mm f1.4 anamorphic autofocus lens was sent to me from Sirui. They have not seen this video before, and nor have they said anything that I should say on this video, so everything I say is based on my own opinion using this lens for a few times. Why test an anamorphic lens? I've been wanting to test an anamorphic lens for years and never really bought one because, to be honest, I don't really need one. But when Sirui contacted me and asked me if I want to test and take a spin with the 20mm T1.8 Anamorphic autofocus lens, I said, well, why not, since it has a unique look. And I wanted to test how that unique look suits my way of shooting street photography. I know this is not the go-to lens for many, but, you know, trying something different is always fun, and seeing how that unique look would fit my style. And the unique look comes from two things. Three things. First of all, the bokeh is oval. That looks totally different, even though I'm not really into bokeh that much, since when I do street photography, I tend to stop down quite a bit anyway, so bokeh is not the thing. But of course, sometimes to get that cinematic look, that could be something. And then anamorphic lenses have this unique flare, and this one is the one with the blue flare. I will talk about that a bit later, what the problem with the flare and this particular lens is. And then the third thing is the aspect ratio. When I shoot with this lens, the image is squeezed and I need to de-squeeze it in post, and I will also show you how to do that. But those are the three things that are interesting in this type of lenses. I was going for the cinematic look. I will talk about that a bit later and tell you if I got any. And well, I will show some images and show you. I started my photo walk taking a metro from Kalasatama metro station. I saw this first, and I thought that this could be really a great cinematic image because it's a little gloomy, you know, not very, let's say, inviting in a way. So, but there are some movie vibes with the colors and everything. The only problem with this was that there was no one walking down the stairs at the time I was there. I waited for 10-15 minutes, but nobody came to the stairs. Everybody were using the other stairs or the elevator. So no luck with that. But I will definitely go back into this place, and maybe in stage there would be great to put a model there and, you know, make some horror movie type movie clip, or not a clip, but a screenshot of a movie. I think it could work on this particular image. I'd say that this was a good start. And after I got to the railway station, metro station, I went to this place, which is pretty close to it. And this is one of my favorite places nowadays in Helsinki too. I always go and check out this place because of the neon signs and neon lights in this. Actually, there is a tattoo. Do you call it parlor or whatever? But a place where they make tattoos on the across the hallway. And this is their ad. And I think this is a very cinematic and very photogenic place. And especially if you can get someone in the bright spot that goes out. There's a, you know, street in front of the railway station out there, so that's why it's so, but it's brighter. And to get someone in there, usually it's fairly busy, so to get just one person here is not that easy. But I managed to get a decent shot, and I took, you know, both ways because, you know, you never know. Just always work the shot and see if on a places like this, when you do this fishing technique, just, you know, wait for enough time and then work the shot. It's not in that sense the classical way, because I see a place and I stop there and see if something happens. And I do have a video about fishing technique if you're more interested in that. But yeah, I think I had a good start. And since I had a few keepers and a good start, I thought that maybe I'll try a little bit more traditional way of making street photographs with an anamorphic lens. And I didn't really succeed that well. I walked around the city and for some reason I just didn't see many things. That was probably because the pre-visualization that I had in mind was too strong. I wanted a certain type of image, and, you know, I will tell you if I got it at the end of this video. And since this is not a typical anamorphic lens in a sense that this is an AF lens, there aren't too many of these, and that's another reason I wanted to test this, because it's a lot more convenient for street photography. Even though, as I said in my fishing technique type manual focus lens would not be a big of a problem. But this is more versatile since it has AF. Because I can use this as a manual focus lens because it has this manual focus switch on the side, which is I think is really good to have that on the side of the lens. It makes it so much easier to switch between AF and MF. Well, the AF works quite well. I did not have too many misses, but unfortunately this one was a miss for some reason. I don't know if I had the wrong settings, or is it the lens, or is it the combination between Sirui and Fuji cameras, because I've had some issues with my 75mm regular lens, not an anamorphic, just a regular small telephoto lens. It has some small issues with autofocus when using with Fuji cameras. I'm not sure if this is a bigger thing or is it just these two lenses that I have. So this could have been a better shot if the person was pin sharp. Now it's, the background is sharper than the person. There might be some motion blur too, but it's not that pleasing image in that sense. It would have been better because the position of the lady is just perfect, the legs and the small turn the head and everything. So it could have been an image, but I blew it. And as I said, I usually go to familiar places just to get started and find something familiar, and that's why I was heading inside the railway station. And on the way I saw this scooter parked in front, and once I got to the scooter, the girl that was riding it came, and I think I got a pretty good shot with the helmet and the ball, the light bulbs or the balls behind the statues, the stone men that they call these. And they had these shirts because they are advertising the birthday of Helsinki, which is the 12th of June. The problem with this image is that it is portrait mode. I don't think this lens is that good for that. It could be in some architectural shots. This could work as one of those formats, but I don't think it came out that good. The situation is pretty nice, and the color contrast, and as I said, the helmet and the light bulbs, there's a kind of like a triangle. So in that sense it works, but not really happy with this shot. And I haven't really gotten traditional street photographs with this yet, so that's why I went inside the railway station to see if there were any good shadows and light play, or light and shadow play inside. It's not the best time during this time of the year because it's at its best during March and October, when the sun is much lower and there are long nice light streaks and shadows in the floor. I positioned myself here and waited again quite a bit of time to get this shot, which came quite nice. I like the rim light around the person. A guaranteed place always to get something if it's a sunny weather because of the big windows and the light that comes inside. It's a good place, and usually, if you are struggling, go to a familiar place where you know that you can get something. And this is why I always come back to this place. And before we continue the photo walk, a few words about the editing. As I said, the image is squeezed because anamorphic lenses squeeze the image, and to get the image look natural, you need to de-squeeze it. And this lens is 1.33 times squeeze. So what we need to do is to stretch the image by 1.33. So we multiply the pixels that is on the long side by 1.33 and get the pixel amount. And how I do it is I just go to Photoshop and use image size and add, instead of 6240, I just write 8300 on this, and voila, the image looks natural. It's not the best or most convenient workflow, but usually when I go out and photograph on the streets, I don't get tons and tons of images, so it's not a big problem, to be honest, if I need to do this for a couple of images after my photo walk. And then I was heading towards Oodi, and I saw these tourists making photographs in front of Helsinki sign, and I waited a little bit there and see if something happened, and I got this image which kind of works. It's not a bad image, and I think it works in this thing, and it's nothing special, but I think it works quite well. And inside Oodi I made a few shots. There are a couple of spots that I always go if I go inside. The first one is right in front of the escalators, or when you go to the third floor, you have this window with these textures on the window and some colorful buildings in the back, so you can get a really nice image. and also silhouette. And I was just waiting if there is just one person that comes up with the elevator. And luckily he was using the phone, so there is some shape that's not just a silhouette, but something in the silhouette that makes it look more interesting. And then of course the corner that's on the third floor is always interesting to photograph, and there was no one there, which is very uncommon. Usually there's always someone making selfies over there, but now there was no one there, so I didn't get the shot that I wanted. But this is a place that I go often, so I can go back anytime to make that shot that I wanted. And also grab this shot of a guy reading and get some bookshelves there, and more traditional way. It came nothing special, but something anyways. And I also tried a few cityscapes from the balcony, because this lens could be a very good lens for cityscapes. And yeah, this looks pretty nice, this area, now that they've finally finished the whole area around Music Hall, Finlandia Hall, and the Audi. But before we continue, and I will tell you if I actually got a real cinematic image that I'm happy with, a few words about the image quality. And there is the biggest problem with this lens. The lens is really well made, and it's really durable and feels good, and everything looks good, and it screams good image quality. But unfortunately, it's not very good. And the biggest problem, really, did I say the biggest problem, is the distortion. And usually you can correct distortion. It's not a problem. But when the longer side has barrel distortion and the shorter side has pincushion, that's impossible to correct. At least I don't know any software that can do that. Maybe there are, but I haven't found one yet. So when you're trying to correct the other gets worse. So you have to decide which one to correct. In my way of shooting, in many cases, it didn't really matter. I just fixed the other one, and dark edges and stuff, you don't really see that. But if you want to do video, for example, with this, I would say that it's impossible. I would not, unfortunately, Sirui, I have to say that I would not use this for video. What even makes it worse is because the anamorphic lenses have this unique flare, as you see from this image. It bends, and that is not acceptable. It should be straight, and that's why I would not use this lens for my video work, which is unfortunate because I was planning on using this. Maybe I could use it on a bright sunny day when there is no possibility of this type of flares, but to be honest, it's not usable. I'm sorry to say that. And I made a few more of a traditional type street photographs inside Kiasma, and I made these in portrait orientation so that maybe I could make a kind of like a triptych of these and see how that would work. I don't know, maybe these images don't go together that well, but it's an idea which I will probably do later with this lens. Diptychs and triptychs always makes you think, because you have to have some kind of a connection between the two or three images. There's some kind of a conversation between the images is needed in order to work. What that is maybe you can watch that video if you're interested in diptychs. I did those in Istanbul last year. And there are some interesting things about diptychs and about two images that are side by side. But yeah, this photograph was something that I was looking for, and I finally got it. This is a bit of a cliche, but I think this image came out the way I wanted it to come out. And the funny thing is that if you look at the image, and if I wasn't saying that I took it, you could think that this is an AI image, and that's why it makes it a bit cliche, because this is what AI images look. But I think it's a very cinematic image, and this could be a screenshot from a movie. I think it has some of that stuff, and of course the aspect ratio, it's very close to CinemaScope aspect ratio, and that's why it makes it look a bit cinematic. There is a video about the 75mm f1.2, I believe it is, that I tested for see how a telephoto street photography could be. But hey, thanks for watching, and bye for now.